It's a norm and it's expected that when you'll be sitting that paper next week on Thursday, early morning, you have to remember that company law is done. Those of us taking CPA, you have to remember company law is done before company law is done before the FM. Those of us taking CS, company law is done before the public sector. So please don't confuse. When you start reading the other papers, then you forget that company law is a paper early morning. Aside from that, it is the only paper here at the intermediate level where you are given the choice of choosing from 7 questions. You have to attempt 5 questions from 7 questions. You have to know the art of choosing the questions. You have to prefer, if you are to choose questions, you have to prefer questions that are distributed. If today you are to be asked, can you tell us the consequences of a derivative action, 10 marks? And then you are also asked, tell us the different elements of reorganization of a share capital, 10 marks. So that is a 20 marks question. That is one scenario. Then the other question you're being asked, explain the concept of membership of a company, 2 marks. Explain the different ways of acquiring membership of a company, 6 marks. And then you are asked, tell us also, what are some of the essential elements of a valid company meeting, 5 marks. And then you are also given now another 10 marks question. For example, you are asked, can you tell us the rules governing beneficial ownership in a company? What are the rules governing beneficial ownership in a company? 10 marks. If I were that person who is sitting a paper and I don't know both questions and I have to answer 5 questions. So from the 20, there are 2 questions. I am to choose between them, but I don't know both of them. I have forgotten. Then the easier way, if that is a question you're not sure of, you should prefer or you should take the question that has distributed marks. The one that has 5 marks, 5 marks, 4 marks, 10 marks, etc. It is very bad for you, you are choosing or you are, it is very bad and so it will be a very wrong choice if you are doing some guesswork and you're doing a guesswork of a 10 marks question. For example, that question that I have said that you don't know, you only know 10 marks, but you don't know the other 10 marks. Okay, so you are taking a guesswork of 10 marks. That's a very unhealthy and a very bad decision as a student who is taking company law. The best one is you have to choose the question that has some distributed risk so that you can give us, for example, you know, the essential characteristics of a company meeting, maybe that one you know. Okay, you know what are some of the rules on beneficial ownership. You can give on some 3 or 4. So if you are to give some guesswork, I'm saying from the choosing of the 7 questions and you need to take 5, and you don't know some of the answers, you have to choose the one that has distributed questions. The reason being, you may survive using 1, 3, 4, 5, etc. But if you decide to take the risk and you want to answer the question that has 10 marks, then if the first point you are wrong, you are assured you cannot get anything from the 10 marks. So you have to know how to select the question. I think that is the only thing that I have seen people surviving here at the company. You're choosing the question that you need to take. More so, it is normal and it is expected that most of us, they are very busy people. Maybe they have not covered some topics and it is, that's normal and it's expected. But then you have to know that selection of questions, you need to distribute your risk, diversify your risk, more so when you are not sure of some questions. Another important thing, as we start discussing, I do not want to see people over-explaining and giving paragraphs in company law. Company law does not have paragraphs. Just as we have done our notes here, you have not seen us discussing paragraphs the same way. Even if it's a 10 marks question, point, paraphrase of the answer, full stop. Point, paraphrase of the answer, full stop. What are some of the reasons for derivative action? 1, in case of ultra-biased transaction. where a shareholder may institute a court action to stop the court from continuing to do an illegal activity, full stop, 2 marks. That is a 2 marks answer. Don't give us paragraphs. And I always say, all of us, most of these theory papers, ensure you distribute your answers very well. Question 1, the entire question, you have done them at the foundation level. Continue doing the same. And I have said, I do not want to see paragraphs in a company law paper. Just point and I give paraphrasing, point and a simple explanation on the same. In a simple explanation on the same. So let us discuss. I hope by now, I insisted that you have learned, you have gone through thoroughly the first 3 topics. I said, and I want to repeat, we shall be checking it here, a minimum of 30 marks. If you are to sit a company law paper today, and you have done thoroughly the first 3 topics, you have to be assured that at least 30 marks will be from that. So if you know them, then you are assured you have passed, because you can't tell me the other topics, you can't get the other 20 or 25 just to get the 55. Okay then, question 1. Let us now quickly answer our examinations. Question 1A. I only want to give answers. Question 1A. Your friend intends to start running a medium-sized enterprise as a sole proprietor in his local town. He has come to you for advice on the possible challenges he might encounter as a result of operating his business. Advise your friend on the possible challenges about the form of business he intends to operate. If we were in an exam, if we are the ones who are in the exam now, we can assure ourselves that the question is testing question topic 1, and that there's a very important question that this person, I want to paraphrase the question. The friend intends to open a sole proprietor business. A sole proprietor business. They intend to open a sole proprietor business. What are the challenges of this? Challenges of this business. This one is not something that you need to think. It is something that is direct. A sole proprietor is a form of unincorporated associations. So what are the challenges that come? So in other words, somebody was asking you, tell us the challenges or the features of unincorporated association. That is what you are being tested. Topic 1. Challenges of unincorporated association. So you'll tell them 1, it has unlimited liability. It has unlimited liability. It does not have the legal personality. It does not have legal personality. So there's no difference between them. Okay. Another one, it does not have perpetual existence. Does not have perpetual existence. In other words, death, you can even explain it here. You can even, instead of saying does not have perpetual existence, you'll tell us that death or bankruptcy may lead to its closure. Death or bankruptcy of the owner may lead to its closure. It leads to its closure. Difficulties in raising capital, because it only has one. Difficulties in raising capital. Difficulties in raising capital, and we get our 4 marks. And we get our 4 marks, okay? It lacks independent management. It lacks independent management. You can answer. It lacks independent management. So If somebody was there and they were surviving, you could tell them that, okay, you have to learn the art of paraphrasing a question because you cannot see a question and then you start forcing your answers. That is a bad way of answering. You have to first check what is the examiner testing and align the wording sole proprietorship. What is the meaning of sole proprietorship? It's a form of an unincorporated associations. And that is why our normal questions, normal questions will be, can you tell us the advantages of converting the sole proprietor to a private company? Tell us the advantages of converting the sole proprietor to a private company. 8 marks. So you will be telling that a friend of yours the advantages of a company or the characteristics of incorporated associations. It comes from the Salmon versus Salmon case law. You have to understand to answer that. You cannot be forcing on us answers. You have to show us that you're not giving us any Roma there. John Martin wishes to register a company that will offer clearing services. He's not sure on how to select a name for the company as he is afraid that the name he wishes to use might be rejected. He has come to your office. With reference to the above statement, describe 6 circumstances when the registrar of company might reject a proposed name. Describe 6 circumstances. Are these questions in your notes? Yes, they are. 6 circumstances when the registrar of companies, the registrar of companies might reject, a proposed name. They might reject a proposed name. How many marks? 6 marks. In our notes, we gave what are the restrictions imposed in the naming of a company? What are the rules governing the naming of a company? Still, we are in our 3 topics. You remember the 3 topics that I have said? You have to have them. So 1, the answers. If the name is similar to the existing business name, if the name is similar to the existing business name. 2, if the name promotes violence, if the name promotes violence, if the name is misleading, if the name is misleading, as to the nature of the business conducted, as to the nature of the business conducted, as to the nature of the business conducted. 3 or 4, if the name connotes immoral activities, if the name connotes immoral activities, if the name connotes or promotes, you can talk of promotes immoral activities, if the name is associated with the head of state, if the name is associated, and the name is associated with the head of the state, in the head of state, if the name is associated, with the independence, if the name is associated with the independence of our country, you can also say initials are not accepted. Initials are not accepted unless the full meaning is spelled out. Unless the full meaning is spelled out. Unless the full meaning is spelled out. You get your 6 marks. So that one comes from naming of a company. That one comes from the naming of our companies. Kitabu Limited, a private company incorporated in Kenya, is contemplating Kitabu Limited, a private company incorporated in Kenya, is contemplating extending a loan to one of its directors, Jane Mutiso. Jane Mutiso. The loan is intended to assist James Mutiso in purchasing a residential property in Lunda. Advise the board of directors on the 5 legal requirements of providing such a loan to John Mutiso. On providing such a loan to John Mutiso. What are the legal requirements? What is the examiner asking you there? Advice on the legal requirements for the company to issue loan to its directors. Is that a question in your notes? Somebody must say yes. Is that a question in your notes? That's a question in your notes, yes. Where did we discuss it? Somebody can see it under company directors. Somebody can see it under the company directors. Alternatively, if you don't know it, the company directors, because that is the first time we discussed that thing, the next thing is under the statutory rules on maintenance of share capital. The statutory rules on maintenance of share capital. Okay. That is also the other circumstance when we discussed the concept of this, when we discussed that the directors of a company may be appointed, not appointed, sorry. That is the other time that we discussed that directors of a company may be given some loan, because that is what the examiner is asking. When can the company give loans? So what are the legal requirements? The circumstances when the company can give loan. One, if for the company is for the time being private. If the company is for the time being private. So it must be a private, that is a legal requirement. Don't be shocked because of what are the legal requirements we should do loans to the directors. Then you start giving bad answers. You're being asked, what are the exceptions when the company is giving loans? The art of underlining the main words of an examiner must be seen in an exam rule. The art of underlining the main wording of the examiner, paraphrasing it so that you can answer the question must be seen in your answering. So one, if the company is for the time being private, it's for the time being private. So you'll be explaining what is a private company. It's for the time being private. If lending, if lending is part of the ordinary business, if the lending is part of the ordinary business, is part of the ordinary business of the company, if lending is part of the ordinary business of the company, where the funds or the loans is given to the directors, where the loan is given to the directors, and the loan is given to the directors in order to meet the expenditure, the loan is to be given to the director in order for them to meet the expenditure, in order for them to meet their expenditure, to meet their expenditure in performance of the obligations, in the performance of their obligations, in the performance of their obligations. For the loan is given to the director, the loan is given to the director The loan is given to the directors to do what? The loan is given to the directors to defend or institute in order to defend any criminal or civil proceedings, in order to defend any criminal or civil proceedings they have committed in the discharge of their functions. Lastly, you can also tell them, they advise that board of directors that there must be, the last one, this one is so specific on that situation, that authorization under the Articles of Association. There is authorization under the Articles of Association. Authorization under the Articles of Association. The authorization under the Articles of Association. It must have been approved by the Articles. Authorization under the Articles of Association. The internal constitution, the Articles of Association must approve, or it must have a provision on giving the loan to the directors. That question, it's a direct question from our notes. I've said company directors. If you don't get the company directors, then you need to go to the statutory rules on maintenance of capital, that it is unlawful for a company to issue loans to the directors. What are the exceptions? Previously, the examiner was asking that way. What are the exceptions of issuing loans to the directors? Question 2. Question 2A. Explain the meaning of central depository. Explain the meaning of central depository. Where do we get this concept of central depository? Though not very common, the concept of central depository arises when we are discussing the different types of transfers of shares. What are the different types of transfers of shares? We have one, the forged transfer of shares. We say transfer means the conveyance of shares from one person to another. That is what we meant by saying the transfer. So when we are asked, can you tell us the meaning of the term, what are the different types of transfers? We have the forged transfer, which I said is very common, that you need to say, this is a transfer whereby there's a signature mismatch. There is a signature mismatch. 2, we also said that there's an oral transfer of shares that is null and void. Oral transfer of shares is null and void. Okay. 3 is this one, electronic transfer, where we said it refers to transfer of shares in the electronic form. Transfer of shares in electronic form through what we call the central depository. So what is the meaning of a central depository? We can say it refers to, although this is a question in financial markets, this is not a company law question. But nevertheless, it was in the last sitting, so we need to answer it. It refers to electronic original book entry system. It refers to the electronic original book entry system. Electronic original book entry system. Electronic original book entry system that facilitates the purchase actually, let's say that facilitates the securities transactions. The marking point is here, electronic original book entry system that facilitates the securities transactions. That facilitates the securities transactions. So anytime you see the word central depository, just remember it is the electronic in this manner that we do not now trade our securities physically. What we do, we trade the securities in the digital platforms. This work is supervised by what we call the Central Depository Settlement Corporation. Okay, and there are different types of CDS accounts. Those ones on the financial market. So Central Depository, the electronic original book entry system that facilitates subsequent securities transaction. The examiner went ahead, and that is okay. You know, it's very much okay even next week when you find the exam having new questions. That's okay. That is what I've said. You need to know to diversify the risk. It is expected and it's normal. None of you, I'm sure, has gone through the Companies Act. And these questions, some of them, they're coming from the Companies Act, the other subsidiary legislations that support the Companies Act. It's okay and it's normal. But what I have said, you have to know how to select the questions. For example, this question was 2 marks and 6 marks. But then if you check question 2B, so somebody could have survived with not answering. They don't know what is a central depository, that's okay. They don't know what are the duties of a central depository, that's okay. But the next question is, discuss the rights of members of a registered company. That's a 12 marks question. It then goes back to what I was saying. The first 3 topics have a minimum of 30. The first question, 20 marks we got from the first 3. Question 2, 12 marks. So we are now at 32 marks. That is what I said. You cannot be in that exam room and then you're telling me by now you have never gone through formation of a company, membership of a company, company secretary, and you have not gone through what we call the nature and classification of companies. And that one, we don't know what we can do. Personally, I don't know. Maybe the villagers there can assist you. But for us, we have insisted. So you know how to diversify the risk. So this one, maybe somebody can check all the other questions they don't know, but at least question 2B. So you'll focus and ensure that the 12 marks in question 2B, you have gotten all of them. Okay? We are diversifying the risk because it's normal. I can assure you, don't feel bad when you go through the questions. Then you find some of them, they are not in any way, you don't understand them. Okay? Question 2A, Roman 2. Highlight 6 duties of a central depository. Still a financial markets question. This 2B, highlight 6 duties of a central depository. 6 duties of a central depository. It facilitates immobilization of securities. It facilitates immobilization of securities. It facilitates immobilization of securities. If somebody asks you what is mobilization of securities, maybe somewhere in the village, and you tell them that you have learned something called central depository, because anyway, if you want to trade and if you want to engage in this, buying of shares and etc., you must be in a position to have opened what we call a CDA account. So when you talk of immobilization of securities, it is a placement of the physical share certificates in one central location, okay, to facilitate the electronic trading of securities. Immobilization, placement of physical share certificates in one central forum to facilitate the what we call electronic trading of securities. 2, it facilitates It facilitates the dematerialization of securities. Facilitates dematerialization of securities. It facilitates dematerialization of securities. So what is the meaning of dematerialization? Complete elimination. It is a complete elimination of the physical share certificates. The complete elimination of the physical share certificates. Okay. Three. That is why I've said that this one is a financial markets question. Facilitates the deposit and withdrawal. It facilitates the deposit and withdrawal. It facilitates the deposit and withdrawal. Deposit and withdrawal of certificates in the respect of immobilized securities of certificate. And when you talk of the certificate, it is a share certificate. I feel somebody is surviving. Let us first answer that, then I explain once again. Deposit and withdrawal of certificates in respect of immobilized securities. In respect of immobilized securities. Okay. 4. It also opens, maintain, and closing of the securities account. Open, maintain, and close the securities account, and close the securities account, and close the securities account. Rather than ensure efficient transfer, ensure efficient transfer of book entry securities, of book entry securities, transfer of book entry securities. Another one, it also facilitates the cash payments. It facilitates the cash payments. Actually, the wording is, when you go to the statute, you see the efficient cash payments. Efficient cash payments in respect of securities. In respect of securities. So those are some of the answers that you are expected to give. Let me explain to that person who is still surviving. We have said, and we want to repeat, that when you see the word duties of a central depository comes from the transfer of shares. And one of the forms is electronic. Electronic means that we are buying and selling, or we are transferring or conveying the shares of a company. We are conveying the shares of a company, okay, from one person to another, or from the transferor to the transferee, using the electronic means. We are using the electronic means. Okay, so when we ask ourselves the duties of this central depository, electronic, it's a financial markets area that currently the investors the current investors and the current financial advisors will tell you, please buy some stock, some shares. We commonly say the shares at Standard Chartered Bank. Please buy some shares at NCBA. Please buy some. You see that one, please buy the shares. It means that you must have what we call the central depository account. Okay, because you cannot buy shares anyhow. You need a central depository account. And this central depository account, you access it through the central depository. So when you are asked what are the duties of this central, facilitates immobilization of security. Immobilization, immo, meaning there's no movement. You're placing all the physical share certificates in one central forum, and then there is subsequent trading of securities. Okay. Dematerialization is the complete elimination. So we are not using in any way the physical share certificates. We will only be looking at the records at this electronic platform to purchase and sell the securities. Deposit and withdraw of and when I talk of certificates, I refer to the share certificate. You know, a share certificate, it is a document that shows prima facie evidence of ownership of shares in a company. A share certificate is the document that shows prima facie at the face of it. If you want to convince us that you are a shareholder at Pesetas company, we need to see that you have what we call a share certificate. So the share certificates are placed in one central forum, okay? And the only entity that will govern the movement of that is the central depository. They open and maintain the securities account. The securities account in this situation, that is what we have called the central depositories accounts, okay? And the transfer of shares. So you can see the word in transfer of book entry securities. Book entry, ukiuzia huyu entry inawekwa hii side na mwenye amepata inawekwa hii side. So the system that does all that is known as the central depository. Question 2b. Discuss 6 rights of members of a registered company in your country. I want to list them because the explanation I've said, you just paraphrase them. Discuss 6 rights. So what I am giving, I'll get the 6 marks. In your answering, you just be paraphrasing. This person has the right to attend company meetings. A member of a company has a right to attend all the company meetings of that registered company. You just be paraphrasing that word. 6 rights. Describe the 6 rights of members. I said that this question, 6 rights of members of a registered company in your country. I said, please don't forget something very important, that somebody else will come with a question that Richard is interested to become a member of a shareholder, sorry. Richard is interested to become a shareholder of Paysetters company. Can you advise him on the proposed rights? The rights of the individual shareholders, they are similar to the individual membership rights. Let me repeat that word. That the rights of an individual shareholder in a company, they are similar to the rights known as the individual membership in the membership company. Remember, under the membership, we said there are 4 main types of rights. The first one, we talked of the individual membership rights, the rights given to an individual board, to an individual member of a company. We then said that there's also what we call the corporate rights. For the corporate rights, we say they are the rights of a company as a legal entity. What are the rights of the company as a legal entity? And I said, you just give the normal characteristics of a company. The other one is what we call the corporate membership rights. For the corporate membership rights, they are the rights of the group members in a company. They are the group rights. That is the wording that we gave in our notes. The group rights. Can you remember? The group rights. It gives us the principle of force versus habit, that decisions are made in a company. Decisions are made in a company through the majority will. Force versus habit. So that you can tell us the 3 main principles: the irregularity principle, the proper plaintiff, okay? And then the exceptions of the majority rule is the 4th right. The exceptions of the majority rule is the 4th right. What is the 4th category of rights? The derivative action. So if somebody is to ask us what are the exceptions of the rule of force versus habit, you, on the other hand, we just paraphrase it and say, we are being asked, what are some of the circumstances for a derivative action? If somebody is to ask us a question, tell us the exceptions of the rule of force versus habit. When don't we consider the rule of the majority? You'll tell us it is because of the derivative actions, the causes of the derivative action. Okay, the rights of members. The rights of members. Let us answer that. The rights of members. Even that one I can ask you. What are the rights of members in your country, at a registered company? Just listing them. The right to vote. What is the meaning of voting? Expressing. So in your explanation, they have the right to express their wishes. You see, that is what we'll be explaining. Tick, tick. The right to attend company meetings. That every member of a company has a right to ensure they can attend, okay, to attend a meeting. They have the right to go to company meetings. So you'll just change attend into they have the right to go to company meetings. Another one, they have the right to receive dividends. The right to receive dividends. What it is is the meaning of dividends, the profit shared among the members. So they have the right to receive profits. Okay, the profit shared in a company, or the right to receive profits of the company every year. Another one, they have the right, they have another one. The other right is they have the right to residual capital in the event of liquidation. In the event of liquidation, what is the meaning of residual capital? They have the right to receive any surplus or any remaining, let us use the word, any remaining capital after payments of liabilities. Any remaining capital after payments of liabilities, okay? After payments of all the liabilities. Another one, they have the right, another right is that they have the right to inspect. They have the right to inspect. Actually, here I forgot. You could have given the right to receive notice, and attend company meetings. So you can distinguish them as two, but once, because it's revision. If you're in an exam, the right to receive notice is different to the right to attend company meetings. To receive notice, they're entitled to receive information concerning, okay, a company meeting. That is what we'll explain, the right to receive notice. For the right to attend company meetings, they have the right to go to the company meetings. So they have the right to inspect, the register of members at a free charge. Members at a free charge. The marking point is here. You cannot say the right to inspect the register of members. This one, at a free charge, they do not pay. For the members of the public, they pay. So you'll be explaining that they can inspect the register of members at any time within the business working hours, okay, at a free charge. Tick, tick. They also have the right to inspect the register of debenture holders, the register of debenture holders of a company. We say debenture holders refers to the right of at a free charge. A debenture holder is a creditor. The right to register, to inspect the register of debenture holders at a free charge. The creditors of a company, they have the right to inspect the creditors of a company at a free charge. That's how. Also, they have the right to receive a copy of any court order. They have the right to receive a copy of any court order with respect to the resolutions, etc. These are the answers that we give under the individual membership. That's how. Good. Question 3. Question 3. Let us see what is question 3 saying. Question 3. ABC Corporation, ABC Corporation, a publicly traded company in Kenya, intends to consolidate its share capital and simplify its capital structure by varying the rights attached to its multiple classes of preference shares. By varying the rights attached to its multiple class of preference shares. However, some preference shareholders are opposed to the proposed variation, arguing that it would unfairly prejudice their interest. Discuss the legal principles and considerations involved in determining the permissibility of the variation of the class rights in this scenario, taking into account the rights of dissenting shareholders in the company's objectives. Is that a question in our papers? Yes. In our notes, yes. Okay. Is that a question in our paper, in our notes? Yes. I insisted. Somebody cannot see such a question and then they start saying, you see, this one I have never seen. You have seen it. Where have we ever seen it? We discussed the variation of class rights. Somebody is just asking you, can you outline the conditions? What are the conditions? So if I was in that exam, I would have paraphrased the question. We have been given many things, permissibility, these dissenting people, okay. But then you are being asked, what advice this company, okay, discuss the legal principles and considerations involved in determining the permissibility of the variation of class right. That is the question now. What are the legal principles and considerations involved in determining the permissibility? In determining the permissibility. That is what we are being tested. Do we know the answers to that? Yes, we know. Why? Because we are being asked, now in the exam, somebody will just say, I'm being asked simple question, conditions involved in the variation of class rights. In our notes, I actually gave you in our notes. When we were discussing in our notes, I gave the example of December 2022. That Brian, I use that one. Brian is a preference shareholder. And then their rate of dividend is to be from 10% to 14%. He feels aggrieved. Can you tell him what are some of the procedures on the variation of this right? The same thing the examiner. The only thing he has done is that he's giving the same preference shareholders, but he's not telling you the specific variation that is happening. So let us get our marks. What are the legal principles? One, it must be authorized by the Articles of Association. So the variation must be authorized by the Articles of Association. So the answers now, the variation, I have said I'm giving the answers. On the paraphrasing, there is nothing big. You just be saying any alteration on the class of preference shareholders must have been approved by the Articles of Association. So variation must have been approved. It must have been approved or authorized by the Articles of Association. Very important answer. By the Articles of Association. And then you say that the alteration to this class of preference shareholders, the alteration, in your paraphrasing, the alteration of this right of the preference shareholders must have been authorized by the Articles of Association. Another one. The company must hold a class meeting. The company must hold a class meeting. To do what? To seek consent. To seek consent for the variation of the class rights. For the variation of the class rights. To seek consent for the variation of the class rights. To seek consent for the variation of the class rights. So they must hold a meeting that involves all the preference shareholders. The third one, the company must pass a special resolution. That is what we said. The company must pass, and again, the marking point being this one, must pass a special resolution. The company must pass a special resolution. During that meeting, during that class meeting, they must pass a special resolution. They must pass a special resolution, okay, supported by at least the holders of, must pass a special resolution supported by at least 75%, supported by at least 75% of the members of that class. The members of the shareholders. The examiner has even told you there that you have to put into consideration the ones that are dissenting. So if it is 75, normally we have 100%. So we have the remaining 25 members of the specific class. So now, members of the specific class. So what about those of us who are against? That is what the examiner has told us. We need to consider them. So now, because they said, involved in determining the permissibility of the variation of class rights, taking into account the rights of the dissenting shareholders. Dissenting shareholders ni minority. Si sasa tumesema it must pass a special resolution that the 75% must be in support of that variation. So what about wale wengine? The holders of less than, so the holders of not less than 15 share capital may apply to the court for the cancellation. So the dissenters, they apply to the court. So that is how we accommodate them. The holders of at least 15% of the issued share capital, okay, of that class, of the issued share capital. Or now in this case, the dissenters, what will they do? May apply to the court. And which is this court? The High Court. May apply to the court. Even don't tell us the High Court. Just say I may apply to the court. Seeking cancellation. Seeking cancellation of the variation of the class rights. Seeking cancellation of the variation of the class rights. Seeking cancellation of the variation of the class rights. That is how we accommodate them. And therefore, the court will either confirm. You see, this question was an 8 marks question, but the fifth one is that the court will either confirm, or decline such a variation. The court. But in this paper, your answers were up to here. 8 marks. This one you paraphrase. This one you paraphrase. This one you paraphrase. This one you paraphrase. The court, 8 marks. So the court may confirm, let us just finalize that process. The court may confirm or decline such variations. And if the court confirms, we said, now let us finalize that process. And if the court confirms the variation, the company must within 14 days, if the court confirms the variation, the company must within 14 days, submit the copy of the altered, what have I said? You must have submit the copy of the court order. What have I said? Not must submit. After the confirmation, they must submit the copy of the, not altered, sorry, court order to registrar for registration. This question will be asked, can you tell us the procedure? If you check the December 2024, The examiner asked, describe the procedure of variation of class rights. This one, nothing else for registration. That is what the examiner asked. What is the procedure for variation of the class rights? Sindio? And we get our marks. So I have said that taking into account this one, the dissenters will go to the High Court seeking cancellation. Good. Question 3B. Discuss 6 classes of debentures. I think that one is a very straightforward question. Describe 6 classes of debentures. Debenture holder. When we were discussing, I told you that there is no one who will ever sit a company law exam and they lack a question on the debt capital. We are assured even in your paper. The first 3 topics are must. The topic number 6 are must. Company secretary are must. So at least you must have done them. First 3 topic, debt capital. You must also tell us on the company secretary. That's a must. Describe 6 classes of debenture holders. In our notes, we gave them that describe 6 types. So most likely, if somebody is to test you, remind yourselves on the types of share capital. Remind yourselves on the types of share capital. Please remind yourselves on the types of share capital. So describe 6 classes of debenture holders. No, 6 classes of debentures. What did we say is the meaning of debentures? A written acknowledgement that I owe you, that a company owes some debt, and it provides the provisions on payment of the principal sum, provides the provisions for payments of the principal sum and the interest. The first one, we have 1, secured debentures. Secured debentures. We have the secured debentures. These are debentures that grant a charge over property of a company. Debentures that grant charge. What did we say is the meaning of a charge? Interest that grants the charge over a company's property. Over a company's property. It grants charge over the company's property. We have the other one, unsecured debenture. We also have unsecured debenture. So these are debentures that create no charge. They create no charge on the assets of the company. So the debenture holder, the creditor, does not have any interest. A debenture that does not create a charge over the company's property, over the company's property. 3, we also have convertible debentures. Convertible debentures. The convertible. In our notes, we gave it as types. Just check. Convertible debentures. So this one is a direct question from our notes. Convertible debentures. So what is the meaning of convertible debentures? They are debentures that can be converted. They are debentures that can be converted. Debentures that can be converted. That can be converted to another class. For example, ordinary shares. For example, the ordinary shares, they become ordinary shares. If you remember convertible, you go to non-convertible debentures. The non-convertible debentures. These are debentures. These are debentures that retain debentures that retain their identity. The debentures that retain their identity unless the company is under liquidation. Unless the company is under liquidation. Five, redeemable debentures. We have the redeemable debentures. So what is the meaning of redeemable debentures? They are debentures that are payable. They are debentures that are repayable at a fixed duration. Debentures that are repayable. They are repayable at a fixed future date or at a fixed future duration. They are repayable. Their date of repayment is known. This one, the other one is the irredeemable debentures. Irredeemable debentures. The irredeemable debentures. Where we can say irredeemable debentures, they are the debentures that has no repayment date. Debentures that has no repayment date. That has no repayment date. It has no repayment date. Can only be paid and can only be paid. Paid during the winding up of a company. Paid during winding up of a company. During winding up of a company. Very fast. So is that one direct from a notes? Yes. So even that person who didn't know the procedure on this and the conditions involved, and this question will be asked as the procedure next time, the same thing. Even if you didn't know the procedures, then the next question gives you a better answers. Question 4. Let's go to question 4. Question number 4. What is the examiner asking question number 4? During a board meeting of POFO Limited, the directors approved a resolution authorizing the company to secure a loan of Kenya shillings 10 million to expand its operation. However, the debate arose thereafter on whether the resolution required unanimous approval or a simple majority under the Articles of Association. One of its directors claimed that the resolution did not follow the requisite steps of drafting a resolution. Okay. Question 1A. Explain two ways in which the type of resolutions affect its approval requirements. Explain two ways in which the type of resolution affects its approval requirements. What is the examiner asking you there? I want to see, maybe, okay, let me just repeat that question because I want to see how it's a very direct question. During a board meeting of POFO Limited, the directors approved a resolution authorizing the company to secure a loan secure a loan of Kenya shillings 10 million to expand its operations. However, the debate arose thereafter on whether the resolution, what is the meaning of resolution? A decision. However, debate arose thereafter on whether the resolution required unanimous approval or a simple majority under the company's Articles of Association. One of the directors claimed that the resolution did not follow the requisite steps of drafting resolution. Explain two ways in which the type of resolution affects its approval requirements. Explain two ways in which the type of resolution affects its approval requirements. What is the examiner asking there? Maybe let me see from someone quickly. Somebody, what are the two ways in which the type of resolution affects its approval requirements? Unauliza uelezee the different types of resolutions. A special resolutions required a qualified majority. The ordinary resolution requires a simple majority. Resolutions requiring a special notice requires at least 28 days. That is the only thing that you're being tested there, imagine, because I can see people surviving. Explain two ways in which the type of resolution affects its approval requirement. So you'll tell us which is this type of resolution, ordinary resolution, which is its approval requirement. It requires a simple majority of at least 50 plus 1. So when you come to the resolutions, you have to paraphrase the question. I can feel somebody surviving. That is why I thought that is a direct question. Explain two ways in which the type of resolution affects its approval requirement. Which is the type? So you have to know which is this type of resolution and what is its approval requirement. Which is this type of resolution and what is the type of requirement? So the first one, the special resolution, it requires at least 75% or 3/4 of the members present. It is a resolution that requires 3/4 or 75% of the members present. Another one, the ordinary resolution, it requires the simple majority. It requires a simple majority. That is 50 plus 1. In other words, the votes for the resolution, the votes for the resolution exceed the votes against. And you give the type of resolution and its approval requirements. Even you can add the ordinary resolution requiring special notice. No one will ask you. Ordinary resolutions requiring special notice, you have them. It requires at least 28 days. So that is its approval requirement. We will first assess if you wanted to remove a director before before expiry of their term, we shall be assessing, is it true that you gave them the 28 days clear notice? If not, it doesn't happen. Question 4B. Advise the board of POFU Limited on the requisite steps of drafting a company resolution. What are the requisite steps when drafting a company's resolution? Drafting a company's resolution. There's something that I said when we were going through resolutions. The requisite steps when drafting a company's resolution. Okay, let me see. I said that a resolution is refers to the decisions made by a company. What are the rules governing it? Am I being heard? Somebody try. Steps when drafting a company resolution. Basically, this question, don't survive. Paraphrase it. What are the conditions or what are the qualities of good resolutions in a company? Somebody who is taking company meetings must be in a position to answer that. Qualities of when drafting a company's resolution, it must, one, be clear. There must be a clear objective. Must be clear objective. Be a clear objective. What is the main purpose? It must be clear objectives. Two, it must be in accordance with the prescribed laws and regulations. The prescribed laws and regulations. In other words, it must be supported by the documents because a resolution is a decision. A resolution is a decision. So it must in any way be in accordance with the regulations. Another one, it must also provide the execution. Must provide the execution provisions. What is execution? The signing, the place of signing the resolution, the place of signing the resolutions. Another thing, when you're drafting, it must only include, must only include the decisions actively passed. It must only include the decisions actively passed by the persons. It must only include the decisions actively passed. Okay, it must only include the decisions actively passed. Together. Another one, you must also say that it must be concise. It must be concise. Okay, and precise. Concise and precise, meaning direct to the point. Must be concise and precise, meaning they are very specific. The resolutions, they are clearly written. Must be concise and precise. It must specify the voting threshold. It must specify the voting threshold. It must specify the voting threshold and mechanism. It must. So the resolutions must specify that this one requires at least 3/4 of the members present. It must specify that it requires an ordinary resolution. So it specifies the voting threshold. Okay. It is also authentic. The resolutions must be authentic. etc. The resolutions must be authentic. etc. Okay then. My people are surviving so much. Question 5. No, question 4B. Summarize the process of removal of a company secretary in your country. Summarize. This one is direct from the notes that I shared with you. If you have gone through them, then you have that. Summarize the process of removing a company secretary. Process of removing a company secretary. Let me put the main points. The directors must pass a resolution actually. It does not give us either ordinary special. So use the one that must pass a resolution to remove the secretary. To remove the secretary. Must pass a resolution to remove the secretary. The director must give notice to the secretary concerned. So the next step, the director, I've said I'm giving the main point. So explanation, you'll be paraphrasing the same thing. The director must give notice to the secretary concerned, to the secretary concerned. 3, the company must record the removal in the company's register of secretaries. The company must record the removal. So they apply for the removal of the company secretary in the register of company secretaries. As I call the removal in the company's register of secretaries. The company's register of secretaries. You will have to apply to the registrar that you want to remove this as a company secretary. Then you must notify the bank that the secretary is no longer authorized. Notification. Notify the bank that the secretary is no longer authorized. Is no longer authorized to operate as a signatory on the business bank account, because most of the company secretary, they are authorized signatories, the business bank account. And then after that, notify the registrar. Notify the registrar of companies. Notify the registrar of companies. The registrar of companies of the removal within 14 days. Of the removal within 14 days of such a resolution. Within 14 days. Notify the registrar of the removal within 14 days. You will notice that most of the times, the statutory time for most of these things is 14 days. Upon making a decision, notify the registrar within 14 days of that decision. Same thing. Okay. So that was a question. You will never sit a company law paper without a question on company secretary. It has never been heard of. Even it better be a 3 marks question, but you cannot sit a company law paper without a question on a company secretary topic. Question 5. Question 5. Outline 5 contents of an auditor's annual report. Outline 5 contents of an auditor's annual report. Tell me, because most of you do auditing. At least I see some people attempting. What are the answers on that? Outline 5 contents of an auditor's annual report. At least I see today no one has given me any answer. I'm the one who has been surviving on my own. Tell me the contents of an auditor's annual report. You discuss it here, you also discuss in the auditors. I want to see your answers, please. Before I give mine, at least I see somebody has given an answer. What are the contents of an auditor's report? Because that is what you are being asked anyway. I hope somebody is not seeing it and then they start asking themselves, so what do we mean by annual return? Etc. Somebody give an answer. Type. I want to see your answer. The whole class cannot be have done only alone here. At least I need to see somebody giving something. Okay, let me then answer. Outline the contents of an auditor's annual report. One, just write it. One, the contents. One, the auditor's opinion on matters. The auditor's opinion on matters. Auditor's opinion. Two, the basis of auditor's opinion. The basis of the auditor's opinion. Basis of the auditor's opinion. The basis of the auditor's opinion. The key audit matters on matters that have been significantly audited. So the key audit matters. Key audit matters. The key auditors matters. The auditor's signatures and addresses. The auditor's signature and addresses. We have the auditor's signature and address. 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 And lastly, you can talk of the going concern statement. The going concern statement. The going concern. People cannot answer a question on the auditor's report. Another one. They also state whether the company, you can also say they state whether the company provided all the necessary information, states whether the company provided all the necessary information, the company provided all the necessary information, whether the truth, whether another, whether the financial statements reflect the true and fair view. The financial statements reflect the true and fair view. The financial statements reflect the true and fair view of the financial position. They reflect the true and fair view of the financial position. The true and fair view of the financial position. Okay. The other question, outline 7 responsibilities. Outline 7 responsibilities of an auditor in your country. What are the 7 responsibilities of the auditor in your country? Outline 7 responsibilities of your auditor in the country as the last question. Responsibilities of the auditor in your country. So the normal answers, we had discussed them. Let us say 1, they have the duty to exercise reasonable care and skill. Duty of care. So duty to exercise reasonable care and skill when discharging their duties. Duty to exercise reasonable care and skill when discharging their duties. Another one, they have the duty, to satisfy, actually let us not use the duty to satisfy. They have the duty, okay, let us put the duty to satisfy themselves that the company securities are in safe custody. The duty to satisfy themselves that the company securities are in safe custody. That the company securities are in safe custody. They also have the duty to examine the books of accounts. They have the duty to examine the books of accounts and detect any errors. The duty to examine the books of accounts and detect any errors. Another one. They have a duty to give a report to the members of the company. The duty to give a report to the members of the company. duty to give a report to the members of the company after performing the audit. After performing the audit. Another one. The duty, they also have the duty to ascertain, actually the duty to disclose material misstatements. They have the duty to disclose material misstatements in the books of accounts of a company. The duty to disclose material misstatements in the books of accounts of a company. They also have the duty to give an opinion. They have the duty to give an opinion based on the facts. Duty to give an opinion based on the facts given. Duty to give an independent opinion. They give an independent opinion. They also have the duty to assess the company's internal controls. The duty to assess the company's internal controls. Duty to assess the company's internal controls. Duty to assess the company's internal controls. So those are some of the duties of an auditor. I want us to stop there. So we will finalize the other one using strictly 1 hour. I will have a 1 hour class on Thursday just to finalize that question 6. And if there will be any other question that we'll have, then we can go through it. But strictly, we will just have 1 hour on Thursday. So we can stop there. Let us meet in our next class.